Solo is this year's The Mummy. And I don't mean it's like a terrible, unnecessary movie that you will forget in like 3 hours. I mean, it's an okay, unnecessary movie that you will forget in like 2 hours. Now, let me just get this off my chest and off the way really quickly. I was one of the guys, one of the many that was saying that Solo, a Star Wars story, was gonna suck. Okay, and it was gonna be terrible, and then there was no point to it. I enjoyed it. It was okay. Like there's not a lot here to dislike, and that's because this movie played it so safe in so many ways that it's impossible to not like it. Every scene of this movie is a worked out scene that the writers, directors, and everybody behind this movie knew that Star Wars fans were going to like. You have blaster fights, you have space fights, you have spaceships going super fast, you have Star Wars references here and there, and you've got comedy, and you've got characters that are, within the Star Wars universe that we will care for somehow. Now, like I said, I enjoyed this movie. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but then again, I also don't think it's a good movie. Let me explain. Solo, a Star Wars story, is a useless film. Everything that happens in here is pointless, not because it doesn't go anywhere, but because we know all of it. The film tried to play it off as if we knew nothing about this story, and there were going to be things that were going to be put in there that we were like, oh, who are you, and what is your purpose in the Star Wars universe, and what are you doing? But it's pointless at the end of the day, because it's not that these characters are not interesting. It's that you know where Han Solo and Chewie end up. You know where they go in the story. We even know how Han dies. So at the end of the day, nothing in this movie really matters. Sure, there are characters that we care for. I mean, Woody Harrelson's character, he's likable. And Emilia Clarke, she also has an interesting role in the movie that you kind of want to see where it goes, but to be completely honest, by the end of the movie, I really didn't care anymore. But again, as soon as you snap out of it, you know that these characters either will die or will disappear somehow, because they're not part of the Star Wars lore that we know. It was the same issue that I had with Rogue One, and it's the same issue that we'll have with all these prequel spin-off movies if they keep making them. There is no real point to them. There are no real stakes. There are no real, there's no real characterization here that tell us this character will come into play later on for some reason. That's not happening. Now, like I said, it's a fun movie because they play it so safe, and to be completely honest, unlike Rogue One, this movie didn't feel like they had to throw a Star Wars reference every 2 minutes, so that was fun. Now, what I don't like about this movie at all is that the plot and the story of this film could be told in 10 minutes. Literally everything that happens in this movie is so small, so minute, that it could be told in 10 minutes, but it's a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. It gets boring. I felt that this was one of the most uninspired, boring Star Wars movies, and it's super forgettable. Like, even though it's fun because you've got your classic Star Wars fun stuff in there, it's forgettable. It's super forgettable. I said forgettable way too many times. I already don't remember the beginning or like the middle of the movie. I remember the last act because personally I think that the last act is so messy and have so many problems with it. But again, this movie is really, there is nothing to it that's gonna blow your mind. There is nothing to it that's gonna make you stand up and clap. There's nothing to it that's gonna be like, this is the best Star Wars movie for this reason. No. This movie is a cash grab, and that's clear from the get-go. Everybody does a good job in their roles, I will say that. But unpopular opinion, I don't think that Donald Glover was that good as Lando. To me, it felt like every time he was talking, he was trying to impersonate the actor who played Lando, and also he was like like a kid dressed as Lando for Halloween. That's what it felt like. But I don't blame Donald that much. I feel like every time Donald opened his mouth, his dialogue was so cringy and really bad that it was more of the writing that they did for Lando than Donald himself. Which leads me to the writing, which is, like I said, the plot is so minute, it's kind of pointless. And it leads me to saying that I feel like this movie would have worked out way better if Lord and Chris Miller were still on board and they were directing. You can see the writing moments from Lord and Chris Miller, and they are the best part of this one. Part that is all Lucasfilm and just Ron Howard trying to make a Star Wars movie that's gonna sell. Those are the parts that suck. Guys, at the end of the day, all I have to say for this movie is that, have you guys realized that we have 10 Star Wars movies that have been in theaters, feature films, not animated, 10 Star Wars movies, and they are all about the same story. All of them. They all either lead to the main trilogy or the prequels or the new movies. They either lead to the Skywalkers or to Darth Vader somehow, or they are about a character that we already know, either Han Solo or something else. None of these movies are new in any way. Sure, they may take us to new places in the Star Wars universe, and they may show us new characters, but at the end of the day, they all lead to the same story, which makes them predictable, unreliable, and just boring and pointless. If Solo was a movie about a new Star Wars character, showing us a new story, a new adventure, and a new world, this movie would have been probably the best Star Wars movie to date. One of the. But because it's just a prequel movie, and everything was predictable, and the last act of this movie, I kid you not, was so rushed like this, and it's soulless. There's no emotion to the ending because of the point they're trying to make and what they're trying to get to by the end. This movie is pointless. I will say this, I enjoyed it more than Rogue One and The Last Jedi because I feel like this movie was trying to have fun with what it had, unlike The Last Jedi and Rogue One. But it's still a really forgettable and pointless movie in my opinion. Guys, Solo: A Star Wars Story gets a 6.2 out of 10. I don't think I'll be seeing this one again. And like I said, if we start making these, if we continue making these spin-offs and prequels and stuff, Star Wars will just be like any other franchise. It already is. We're getting so many pointless movies and it's kind of killing the Star Wars magic. It is killing the Star Wars magic and it means nothing at this point. But if we start making new stories, forget about the Skywalkers, forget about the original trilogy, then I think Star Wars will not only grow as a movie franchise, but as a story.